Okay, so we got some Vancouver Canucks notes courtesy of Thomas Drance and his article yesterday evening. Now, I gotta say this at the beginning of the video. We're gonna dive into all Drance talks about in regards to Vancouver Canucks GM Ryan Johnson, his comments, Manny Malhotra, and some of the other names that have floated around the Vancouver Canucks bubble the past few days, from draft-eligible prospects to Ilya Safonov. I gotta say, we're gonna dive into it here, but I wanted to just acknowledge the fact that Thomas Drance went out there and provided everybody this article on The Athletic for free. This is something that I think we are starting to get a lot more of, and I do not know why. If anybody has any insider info or some hearsay that you can relate to this entire thing, my question is this: why are athletic writers all of a sudden gifting their work for free? Is there a new incentive going around amongst the New York Times and The Athletic as a whole to give the people what's being written about here as gift articles continuously? Because Drance ain't the only guy who's doing this. You're getting a lot of free athletic content these days. I'm just wondering why. But with that said, because this is a really long article, what I wanted to do was give our love to Vancouver Canucks News Summary once again, because they went out there and summarized the big points that Thomas Drance writes about, and it's very helpful for us because it's in a very digestible, readable, alongable format. Yeah, I'm kind of dumb sometimes, if you couldn't already tell. But let's dive into what Thomas Drance and Canucks News Summaries wrote about the Manny Malhotra talk. Starting out with the news that Ryan Johnson was in Buffalo for the draft combine, but he is on his way back to Vancouver to introduce Manny Malhotra to the media. This probably means that by the time this video is uploaded on YouTube, we probably have some sort of a press conference that was done, or maybe a video segment posted somewhere about Manny Malhotra's official promotion to the top of the food chain in Vancouver coaching. We all recognize how it was revealed that Manny was named the coach anyway. Frank Saravalli was hearing things at the draft combine, and he tweeted it out. He was like, yeah, no, Manny's the coach. That's it, straight up. And then, 4 hours later, the Canucks made a post on Twitter late at night. They were like, hey, Manny's our coach, guys. We can't actually let that go and pretend that it's not happening because it's already been discussed. So, Ryan Johnson now coming back to officially announce the word. That's pretty reasonable. Rick Dhaliwal reported that Manny Malhotra has a 3-year contract. And Thomas Drance has heard that Malhotra was using Spencer Carbery, a former Maple Leaf colleague, as a contract comparable. Carbery ended up signing a 4-year contract. Now, Spencer Carbery is the head coach of the Washington Capitals, and, I think there's a good reason as to why Manny and Spencer developed a pretty good connection. I think they got the same things going on up top, if you know what I'm saying. And, okay, all bald jokes aside, Spencer Carbery was a really great coaching addition for the Washington Capitals. You just take a look at the record he had. Yeah, they missed the playoffs this year, but everybody's getting old. I think it's fine. Last year, they looked really great as well. 51 wins, 111 points. Washington was a wagon. But Carbery got that 4-year deal. Manny got that 3-year deal. The Canucks increased their offer late last week. It's safe to assume the two sides were then able to reach a compromise. Now, we got some other Thomas Drance notes over here, starting out with Elias Pettersson. The Canucks will likely explore their options in trading Pettersson this summer, but the most probable outcome is that he remains a Vancouver Canuck. I'm not sure anybody is too surprised to hear that Elias Pettersson, for all of the frustrations that he provides Canucks fans with his day-to-day on-ice performance, he's probably not going to get traded. I know it's a hot topic, and we always make videos whenever somebody says that there's a possibility that it does happen or anybody links him to a new team. But even in my heart of hearts, if you had to twist my arm and get an answer out of me, do I think Pettersson is getting traded? I think they'll try. Vancouver probably wants to see what the market would say for this guy, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think a team is going to be willing to take on Pettersson without any salary retained. Although, who knows, maybe this new regime with Ryan Johnson and the Sedins would actually be okay with retaining $3-something million till the end of 2032. Who really knows? Either way, Pettersson sticking around in Vancouver does seem like a likely outcome here. Drance then has some notes about the NHL Draft. The Canucks are clearly considering drafting Caleb Malhotra at 3rd overall. A lot of combine chatter was going on too, that the Canucks are very high on him. Now, I'm not surprised about that either. You know, all the conversations about Manny Malhotra and his son Caleb potentially, is that an obstacle? Would you prefer a father-son dynamic to not be present on an NHL team? I saw some people that were saying like, oh, well, Manny Malhotra is only on a 3-year deal. So by the time Caleb, who is going over to the NCAA, he'll probably play a great season with BU. He maybe spent another year. Who knows? It's not impossible for top prospects to spend 2 years in NCAA programs. Maybe he spends 2 years there. Who really knows? Maybe he goes to the AHL. Who really knows? Who's to say that by the time Caleb Malhotra is on the Vancouver Canucks, Manny is still going to be the head coach? And I saw that argument on social media. I was like, bro, that's a terrible way to think about it. Like, oh, well, it's okay to draft Manny or draft Caleb and hire Manny because by the time Caleb makes the team, Manny's already gone because his 3 years is up. Like, no, that's not the right way to think about this. What, you'd think the Canucks would be so disappointed in Manny Malhotra's record, which, by the way, it's going to be bad. The Canucks were 32nd in the NHL this previous year. Manny Malhotra ain't taking the team from 32 all the way to 1. Manny Malhotra, you would assume the Canucks are going to get rid of this guy before Caleb Malhotra comes onto the team? That is just terrible. Like, no, that's not happening. There's no realistic outcome where we see Caleb Malhotra walk into an NHL organization that just fired his dad, or that just let his dad go after 3 years. The Canucks are going to give Manny room to breathe and room to grow, because that's what he needs as a first-time NHL head coach. Caleb Malhotra, being in the mix or not, it is an entirely other issue. It's not something that you can just say in isolation, oh yeah, well, Manny's going to leave by the time Caleb makes the NHL. So I disagree with that. Whether or not that changes the way Vancouver actually views their 3rd overall pick, that remains to be seen, but Drance's report says that there is a lot of chatter amongst combine goers that Caleb Malhotra, pretty big Canucks target. And finally, Ilya Safonov is written about here at the bottom. His contract contains a European out clause, and the guy does have limited English skills. So with that said, I'm not really too surprised to hear that note. We did see reports from other people on social media that talked about Ilya Safonov, and the fact that this guy was in a really good spot with Akbars Kazan in the KHL. He was getting decent minutes, he's a center, he was being prioritized, didn't really get the most points, but still he was fine. A powerful skater and a guy who could just drive to the front of the net. This is a guy that was in a pretty great spot. So it's probably unlikely that he decides that the AHL is okay. This was written about by Dave Hall on Twitter. He said that Thomas Drance confirmed today what I've been speculating for a while. Ilya Safonov has a European out clause in his 1-year Canucks contract. I have a tough time seeing him leave a very good situation with Akbars only to end up in Abbotsford. In my view, it's Vancouver or bust for him. That's me completely speculating, but it could ultimately happen. But I just don't see it, personally. As with most of these older European players, it comes down to how much they really want to play NHL games, go down to Abbey and maybe get a call-up or return to Russia for a solid career. You can't fault either choice. So for Ilya Safonov, and as we had talked about in our video where he got signed, this guy could have went to Chicago earlier, but he decided not to. He wanted to stick around in Russia. For Vancouver, there was a discussion, and then there were implications that he would come over to the Canucks at the end of 25-26. That was put on hold when the Canucks management changed, but then they revisited those talks, and Safonov, because of how careful he seems to have been about this entire transition process, it does make me believe that it's NHL or bust for this guy. If he's not playing a full-time NHL role, then he'll just exercise his European out clause and go back over to Europe. So with all that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about these Thomas Drance updates, from the Elias Pettersson trade conversation to Manny Malhotra getting announced, Caleb Malhotra and the Canucks liking him, plus Ilya Safonov potentially sticking out in Vancouver and only Vancouver. No Abbotsford to be found. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on and bye.